Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the CD guy, Johnny Z here. Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel. Today, I'm going to take a look at 10 rock and metal releases that I want to see in 2025. This video is different from the one I did last week here on the channel when I counted down the most anticipated rock and metal releases of 2025 because those are all confirmed releases for the upcoming year. These albums, none of them are confirmed. These are all just guesses and speculation on my end based on reports I've read, things of that nature, and a few that I'm just using my own imagination for, and so just kind of wanted to have a little bit of fun with this here today, take a look at albums that I would love to see released in the coming year. So with that in mind, let's get started. There are no particular order here for these, just 10 that I really want to see in 2025. So let's get started. I'm going to kick things off here with Look Outside Your Window by Slipknot. Hopefully this is the year Slipknot fans finally get to hear The Lost Project by Slipknot members Corey Taylor, Sean Clown Cram, Jim Root, and Sid Wilson, recorded back in 2008 during the All Hope Is Gone sessions, and the album has remained classified since then. It was kept separate from All Hope Is Gone due to its more melodic hard rock approach, more of a experimental sound, and all these years later, I think I can speak on behalf of, pretty much every Slipknot fan everywhere when I say that we really want to hear the thing already, and, the album is owned by the four guys, not by their former label, Roadrunner Records, so they're in charge of its release, and apparently they've been wanting to put it out for years, but, things just keep getting in the way. They haven't gotten around to it, but Clown seems to say that the album is coming every year, and of course it never happens, so take everything he says with a grain of salt at this point, but he did recently say that they were working hard to get the album mixed and mastered, and he already approved the album art, so fingers crossed that Look Outside Your Window finally sees the light of day in 2025. I'm expecting a different, artsy-sounding record, different from the usual Slipknot sound, and I just hope that when it does finally drop, it's worth the wait. How about Nicko McBrain's Last Show by Iron Maiden? Iron Maiden have released a live album for pretty much every tour since the reunion at this point, and so I think it's safe to assume that the band will release something to commemorate the Future Past tour, and a couple of months ago, I would have told you the biggest selling point from a live album for the Future Past tour would have been finally owning a live version of Alexander the Great, which is still awesome, but now I think there's a bigger selling point that every Iron Maiden fan would want, and that's drummer Nicko McBrain's Last Show from Sao Paulo, Brazil in December of 2024. The band knew about Nicko's imminent retirement, for months, and so if they wanted to record a live album to document his final gigs with the band, they definitely had the time to do so, and most live albums are recorded across multiple nights. They played 2 nights in Sao Paulo, which were Nicko's last 2 shows, and given the band's live discography, I'm fully expecting a live album from this tour, so why not go with Nicko's last shows with Iron Maiden? The shows are out on YouTube, they're fantastic, despite Nicko's struggles on the tour, he sounded great and finished strong on those final 2 shows in Brazil, and the crowd was awesome too. Plus, we know that certain parts of the show were pro-shot and uploaded to the band's social media pages, and so it's certainly not unrealistic, of a request for a live album, and one that I'd love to see to commemorate and document Nicko's final shows with Iron Maiden. How about One Assassination Under God, Chapter 2 by Marilyn Manson? Manson made his epic comeback in 2024 with the release of One Assassination Under God, Chapter 1, and Manson hasn't sounded this good in over 20 years, but as strong as Chapter 1 was, and it was a great album, a fantastic comeback, it's only the beginning of a bigger story Manson is going to tell over multiple records. Signed to Nuclear Blast now, he has a plan, and Chapter 1 is just the beginning. Hopefully Manson announces a U.S. headlining tour in the new year and possibly releases the most anticipated Chapter 2 to One Assassination Under God, and I'm assuming we'll at least get an album announcement or a single before the end of 2025, and like everyone else, I'm really looking forward to how Manson follows up Chapter 1, so hopefully the follow-up can come soon enough. Thrash metal legends Testament have been in the studio working on the finishing touches of their next record, unofficially slated for release in 2025, and the follow-up to Titans of Creation from 2020, which is just a top 3 Testament record for me. Incredible album, going to be very hard to follow up for sure, but the band have all spoken very highly of the new music in the works, for their next record in interviews. Lead vocalist Chuck Billy recently said the new record is, quote, very special and feels fresh and challenging again. Chuck also confirmed that the new record will feature a duet with Nightwish vocalist Floor Jansen and a slower Return to Serenity-esque ballad, in addition to some really heavy material and fast-paced thrash. And as for when we can expect a new album, guitarist Eric Peterson recently said the plan is to start releasing singles in early 2025 and hopefully have the new album out by the summer at the latest. Titans of Creation was my favorite record of 2020, so needless to say, expectations are high, and I can't wait to hear what the band have on tap for their next release. German metal pioneers Helloween kicked off the reunion era here with self-titled from 2021, their best record in decades as far as I'm concerned, reuniting in the studio with Michael Kiske and Kai Hansen for the first time in years, and the band are arguably more powerful now than ever, and they re-entered the studio last year to begin work on their next album, which is expected to drop sometime in 2025. Andy Darris has stated that the new album will be more happy and, confident, much more easy listening compared to the self-titled reunion album, which, to be honest, I'm not quite sure how I feel about that, about the easy listening component being teased. I hope the band doesn't compromise the complexity of the record just to make a feel-good record. That's kind of what sunk the original Kiske material in the first place, but hopefully they're able to find a middle ground, and, if that's the direction they're going to be going in. But just like with Testament, it's going to be very hard to follow up their last record, which I thought was one of the best albums of the year when it came out, and they definitely piqued my interest for sure. I just hope that this whole easy listening, happy, feel-good thing doesn't, turn into another Pink Bubbles Go Ape situation. Following that up here with Origins, Volume 3 by Ace Frehley. I love the first two installments of Origins by the former Kiss guitarist Ace Frehley. There are some really fun covers on there, and it makes for, a really interesting listen. And while Ace's live stuff isn't all that great anymore, and quite frankly, it can be hard to watch sometimes, anyone can still sound good in the studio, as shown on his last album, 10,000 Volts, which was way better than it had any right to be as far as I'm concerned. But back in January of 2024, Ace stated in an interview that he planned on starting work on Origins Volume 3 following the release of 10,000 Volts, and teased another collaboration with Lita Ford and Slash of Guns N' Roses on the next Origins installment. Ace was asked once again, about the project in December of this year, a couple weeks ago actually. Then, he said Origins Volume 3 was the plan for 2025, and that it would probably be out before the end of the year, saying he's now in the process of whittling down a long list of tracks to cover for the record, and he'll once again be working with Trickster's Steve Brown, who co-wrote and produced most of 10,000 Volts. Origins 1 and 2 were a lot of fun, and, there's some good harmless covers on there, so no doubt Volume 3 will likely follow suit. And, it's still funny to me that Ace is somehow managed to be the last man standing in Kiss. He's the most active out of the original four, and, it's not like Kiss fans are waiting with bated breath for the next Paul Stanley Soul Station record. Back to thrash metal here with Anthrax. We have not had a new Anthrax record since 2016's For All Kings, which, for context, when this came out, I was still in middle school. So needless to say, yeah, it's time for a new Anthrax album. It's overdue, as far as I'm concerned, and it's apparently been in the works for a long time now, but 2025 appears to be the year that the band finally closed the near 9-year gap between studio releases. No doubt, multiple factors have played a role in the album taking so long, with the 40th anniversary tour and Charlie Benante's commitments to the Pantera Half Terror reunion. But bassist Scott Ian recently commented on the album's progress, confirming the band were taking their time on things. Yeah, no kidding. But also teased new material with, quote, crushing riffs and great hooky choruses, end quote. Even going as far as to say that the next album, which will consist of 9 or 10 songs, will be thrashier than anything the band have done in a long time, which... that sounds exciting. Hopefully it lives up to that hype, but, that all sounds great. And whether it's Charlie or Joey Belladonna or Scott Ian talking, it seems like the members of the band have been saying the same thing for years. Back in 2023, Scott Ian said that, the band should be done recording the new album by Christmas. And, well, it's been a whole year and still nothing. And so I want to believe the next record will be out in 2025, but I'm not holding my breath either. This next one is not a new album, but rather a reissue request for Born Again by Black Sabbath. Tony Iommi always does a fantastic job being very hands-on with the Black Sabbath album reissues and remasters. We saw the release of Anno Domini in 2024, featuring remasters of Headless Cross, Tear, Cross Purposes, and an all-new mix of Forbidden, which I only played a big part in, really saving Forbidden from, the terrible original mix. And so I'd love to see 1983's Born Again get the same treatment. The band's only record with Deep Purple vocalist Ian Gillan in the band. Very underrated album, to say the least, in my opinion, but its weakest attribute has to be its production, which is one thing Tony Iommi himself wasn't particularly pleased with when the album was released back in '83. Earlier this year, Iommi spoke with Eddie Trunk on an episode of Trunk Nation and expressed his interest in remixing the record, saying, quote, it would be nice to get it so we can get a better sound on it, really. There are really some great songs on that album, there really are, end quote. And so I wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Iommi here. There are some great songs there. I really enjoy Born Again. I think it's one of those records that is, an underrated hidden gem in the Sabbath catalog, and they have quite a few of those. But, one other thing, and one great aspect of what Sabbath did with the Tony Martin era on Anno Domini was that, it reintroduced these records to a larger audience that maybe hadn't heard those albums before. And so I think it'd be great to see the same thing be done to Born Again, preferably with some live stuff included too. You get more eyes and ears on Born Again. You include some live stuff and you give it a new and improved sound. I think everyone wins. We are going on 10 years, a whole decade, since the last W.A.S.P studio album, Golgotha, from 2015, and while frontman Blackie Lawless had previously spoken on the progress of the band's next record, saying that he wanted to make a feel-good rocker of an album, Blackie recently stated this past summer that he wasn't all that thrilled with the material the band had for a new record, and so he even went as far as to say the new material has to be better than the classic songs, which that's a very difficult standard to live up to, and no fan should go into the new album expecting that, especially when your catalog includes the Crimson Idol of all records. But I do understand where Blackie's coming from, and so it looks like it's back to the drawing board for W.A.S.P. The band just wrapped up their 40th anniversary tour this year, and so hopefully they take some time in 2025 to find the right musical direction and maybe even release a new album in the coming year, closing the largest gap in their catalog in between studio releases. And yeah, it's been 10 years, it's been quite a while. A new album is long overdue, in my opinion. I saved the most far-fetched one for last, but you know what? I'm just going to throw it out there, and you guys are going to say, Johnny, see, there's no way. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I know, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. In 2025, I want to see some new Acid Bath get released. Sludge metal legends whose careers ended way too soon after only releasing 2 studio albums, but they shocked the entire metal community, earlier this year when they announced their reunion for Sick New World Festival 2024, which unfortunately was canceled, but the band do have 4 reunion dates lined up for 2025, and so call it a shot in the dark, but I'd absolutely love to hear some new music to accompany their reunion. The band's main songwriter, Dax Riggs, announced a new solo album for early 2025 entitled 7 Songs for Spiders, so we know he's been writing some stuff, could it lead to new Acid Bath music? Unlikely, but something I'd love to see, and maybe isn't entirely out of the question now that the band are back together. And look at it this way, it's far more likely now than it was a year ago. So that wraps up this video here. Just wanted to have some fun and talk about 10 potential metal releases that I really want to see in 2025. You guys can see my list right over here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below, turn on the bell for notifications so you don't miss a new upload, and be sure to let me know down in the comment section below what are some albums you'd love to see released in 2025 in rock and metal. And until next time, it's the CD guy, Johnny Z, signing off. Take care, everybody.